there is no such a thing as toxic feminine energy, as well as there is no such a thing as toxic masculine energy. Where do these misinterpretations come from? We'll be discussing in this video, and we will also discuss the concept of chthonic beings. We'll understand what it is and how to use that concept for your growth and evolution. So this whole idea of toxic femininity, masculinity, where did it come from? Basically, these concepts of feminine energy, masculine energy, are multidimensional concepts. And if you try to perceive a multidimensional concept in a flat reality, like as if it's a two-dimensional concept, you will end up simplifying an abstract, a big, complicated concept into something flat, and you will divide these pairs of opposites, like good and bad, God and evil, masculine, feminine. You'll split them into black and white. That's your only way of dealing with concepts if you're trying to perceive them in two dimensions. You have to make them flat. So that's what happened when people try to describe feminine and masculine energy as flat two-dimensional concepts. They assigned one to be black, another one to be white, and then whatever doesn't fit into that description, they call toxic. So, okay, this is feminine, whatever doesn't fit into that description, that's toxic femininity. And that's simplification, and that helps, at least at the beginning stage of understanding of all these energies and these complicated issues. But if you want to go deeper, you do need to develop a broader approach and broader perspective and ability to perceive several dimensions at the same time. And that's what we'll try to train during this video, this ability. And we'll talk today about this concept of chthonic being. The word chthonic basically means something that comes from Earth. So basically, those are all the monsters and all these like scary dark gods and entities and beings which come from the depth, from the earth, from the deep waters of earth. Once again, the Gaia herself is chthonic being. It is the most powerful of all the chthonic beings, and all the gods and goddesses which had always been, like throughout our history and mythology, were associated with earth, and everything inside the earth, underneath the earth, like underworld, and the water as well, oceans and seas, and the deep waters. So all these beings which come from there are called chthonic beings, chthonic gods. So that I want you to unite all of those gods and beings and concepts that you consider dark, evil, coming from the depth, and causing you to feel terror and fear and that primordial fear and the panic. And that's what we'll be talking about, because this is a major part of like understanding that concept of chthonic being is a huge step in understanding of this arcana. That's the moon. And we'll be talking specifically about this card in this video. And I will explain how understanding of this card will help you to deal with your own darkness, with your own whatever shadow, your own beast, whatever, all the darkness in you. How this card actually describes gives an instruction on how to integrate your darkness, how to integrate the feminine aspect of you, And here, when I call this aspect feminine, you must consider what I said in the very beginning, because I did mention in the Christ consciousness video these two cards as being like a representation of the two main principles, electrical and magnetic, masculine and feminine. But when we discuss these cards, hopefully I will be able to show you how within each one of them there is layer after layer after layer of feminine and masculine within each one of them. So they're not purely, this is just darkness, this is just light. Okay, why should I deal with darkness? I just want to be light. I just want to understand this card only. Explain to me this one only. And if you try to request that from me, I will have to explain to you that within this card, there is this card encrypted within the glyphs of this card, and the same this way and that way. That's why when I talk about the major arcana of tarot, I say that if you just perceive them as flat pictures, just like, okay, just a drawing, so easy to understand, just decode each of these symbols in a flat way, and you solved it. But that's just like two-dimensional perception of a very complex system, because each one of these cards is like a very deep and multidimensional instruction. It's a very multidimensional concept. So each picture is not flat. It has like a lot of information encoded into each of the symbols. And in order to understand the true meaning of each card, you have to actually have like big enough capacity to hold this much information, and to be able not to just narrow it down to just, okay, simplify good and bad. I want, just give me a very basic, straightforward instruction. This is good, this is bad. Do this, don't do this. Simplify. If you want to simplify, okay, just go to religion. They simplified. How is that working out for you? So if you have the capacity to hold more concepts at the same time and operate more concepts at the unit of time, then you might be able to actually perceive the full meaning of each arcana. I will explain today on example of these two, how they're intertwined and how they're working together to explain, all 22 are working together to explain one idea of the purpose of this whole thing. To like asking me to simplify it to just one example, like one instruction, is asking me to do the impossible. So I'm doing my best, and today we'll go through this card, specifically the moon. And if you don't have your own deck, I suggest that you find this card online in Google. You can just search and this specific classical deck, and you want this specific image, not any artistic interpretation. And we'll go symbol by symbol first, like just to see on this classical deck, we see the moon in the sky with a very strange rays behind her. Then we see two towers and a road that comes from somewhere like at the level of the moon, like around the horizon. And at this end of the road, we see a little lake or a pond. And from that lake, there is a Cancer coming out, just starting on getting closer to that beginning of that road. And on two sides of that road, we see a wolf and a dog. This is the classical card. And these symbols we will be working with. And we'll go with just this basic understanding, first of all, of what is a chthonic being. Chthonic, anything that comes from earth, what do we have coming from earth? The physical body. So a chthonic being in us is the physical body. This is our chthonic being, our own personal one. Other versions of chthonic beings would be all the dark gods with whom the sun gods were fighting. So the gods of the night, of the underworld, and so on. So these would be all the gods which, or these beings that come from the depth, and they have like these monsters who have like many hands, arms, and look like wolves or just terrifying creatures. My English does not allow me to be creative in this part, but I think you can imagine. Use your imagination to imagine the scariest being that you can that comes up, whatever it is for you. For somebody, it can be a shark which appears from the depth of the dark water. From somebody, it can be like specific being that has been described to you by somebody else, like a devil or some that's a chthonic being that's been described and given shape by the church. And any of those versions of chthonic being, we can summarize them all by this whole one logic, that they all represent something that comes from the depth, from the earth, from the earth. In us, for us to work with this concept, we need to understand this is the physical part of us, the beast in us, all right? What do we need to understand about this beast? First of all, this common quality among all of these gods is that they are very powerful. This is the key. It's like impossible to eliminate them. Even the Zeus is constantly fighting with this god of night, but every time we see that maybe you can kill him for a while, but he keeps rising, he keeps coming back, and it's very difficult to win over something that comes from earth. So these powers of the Gaia herself, powers like ability to create earthquakes or ability to create tsunamis, that power, that amount of power is what we need to understand. All these chthonic beings, their main quality is immense potential, power that cannot be surpassed. That is the key in understanding of this whole chthonic being concept. So let's go. When we talk about the chthonic being earth, something that is coming from earth, it's coming from depth, it's coming from the depth of water as well, those underwater creatures. And that water gives us the connection to the water element and the concept of emotions. Now here we get connected with that. The earth element connects with the water element in us. So this chthonic being is something that works in our body with the physical body itself, with what's written in our DNA, with everything that comes from our ancestors, from whom we received this physical body. DNA, physical, earth. And then it works through the water, the emotional field in us. So we do inherit emotions and copy emotions from people who we are related to. Even if we don't interact with them, those emotions are deeply intertwined with the DNA itself, with the body that we receive. Emotions are encoded into the physical structure. So from here we get to understanding of the power of emotions, because that is a key understanding, that this whole idea of this primordial fear and panic would not be possible if we had not emotions, right? So it is our capacity to experience emotions, and next level would be our imagination. Because as humans, we're able to imagine beings. Like if we experience that fear when we look at the dark water, and we imagine, we are able to imagine what could possibly come out of there. That's where we use our creative potential to create these monsters. And other beings on this planet do not have this potential to create beings by just imagining them. So, so far, throughout our history, we've imagined a lot of chthonic beings. Whether they're real or not, we cannot explore right here, right now, but we can look through this mythology and history related to this concept, and we can actually pick up some useful ideas from there. So let's go through some of the examples that I have. First, let's go with this idea of, okay, let's go through just some of the symbology first, then we'll connect, unite. So basically, try to guess what on this card symbolizes your fear. Out of all the items or glyphs, we call them, drawn on this card, which one symbolizes your fear? 3 seconds to think about it. And the answer is everything on this card symbolizes your fears. But your fear has many different layers. And the first layer that we start with, let's just start with the Cancer. And that would be the type of fear which is programmed into your DNA. The lowest level here on the card, the lowest one, is the most basic, the most primitive at the very core. And here in this card, this level of fear is symbolized by Cancer, because out of all these beings drawn on this card, the Cancer is the most sensitive. It lives in the water, and it's very, very, very sensitive. And whenever it feels any kind of like danger, discomfort, it just makes one quick move back. So on this card, we see this Cancer trying to get out of the water. Water, once again, in all of the tarot cards, water represents the emotional field. So Cancer lives in our emotions. It's the fear which lives in our emotional body. But that's the most primitive level of fear, and that level of fear, majority of you probably do not even recognize that you're having it. From my own experience, I can say that when I work with people, and they are usually able to recognize other levels of fears, like we have here a wolf and a dog. They also represent fears, but different level. I'll explain. And the Cancer is the level that you're not absolutely unaware that you even have it. And if I recognize it, as like with my experience, I'm able to spot it. If I show it, announce to you that you have it, you'll never accept it. You never recognize it. You'll be like, no, you're crazy. You're imagining it. It's not there. So this is the level of fear that you're not even aware of, but it's encoded into your DNA. Next to it, next to the Cancer, we have dog and wolf. So the Cancer would be here also symbolizing the most sensitive of all beings in animal kingdom. So in other, like in different myths and different initiation practices, there would be creatures like serpents or crocodiles, to represent that same idea, the highest sensitivity, the deepest level of your fear, the deepest level of sensitivity, which you are probably the least able to recognize. So there would be practices, for example, in India, when they're mastering their awareness and consciousness, and when you reach the highest level available, possible in that advancement. So you are supposed to be able to interact with the cobra without having a cobra attack you. So in India, cobra is known to be the most sensitive of all snakes. So it's able to sense your fear from like feet away. Like if you have even slightest trembling, even slightest emotion somewhere in the back, you're maybe not even aware. Consciously, you might think, no, I've seen so many snakes already, I'm not afraid. But if somewhere back, deep, there is at least tiny little bit of fear that you haven't conquered, that you haven't tamed within you, the cobra will sense and she will attack. So that is considered like the highest level of initiation for those schools of spiritual thought, that they actually, like the highest level, people of the highest level, able to just deal with cobras, play with them, because they've mastered their water, their emotion, their all the animals within them. They know them and they've got full control of them. So that initiation technique with cobras, for example, in India, and so they would signify a level of advancement where you've dealt not just with your fears, not just with the karma that you've accumulated through this lifetime, but also with fears that are in your DNA, stuff you received from mothers, fathers, grandfathers. When you dealt with all of it, then you're good to go to deal with cobras. So that is the symbol. I'm explaining these so that you get closer and closer with that to that understanding of chthonic being. How many beings are actually included into that concept, that it's all one same concept. Don't be confused that there are so many gods and so many animals. What are they all representing is one thing: the animal, sensitive and powerful. So in Egypt, there were different initiation practices where adepts would be trained for a while, and when you reach the proper level, your last exam, initiation, would be to get into the Nile River and just like without anything, just float on the water and like float down the river without a boat, just float on the water down the Nile River, which is full of crocodiles, especially in some places. And like if you really have mastered your emotions, your water, you float through that water of the Nile without being noticed by crocodiles. You float and safely get out. That would be considered that you passed your initiation. But if you're floating at night, it's done at night, Nile River, dark water, crocodiles can be anywhere. If something trembles in you, crocodiles are very sensitive. They sense that. You're done. So that is the level of integration of your inner animal that you need in order to succeed dealing with this card. So the crocodile in this case, the cobra in the case of India, also the idea of a Scorpio is used. That image can be used. You can find it in different myths, in different stories, in different, even in films, in fairy tales. You can find that symbology representing the same concept, something very powerful, deadly, poisonous, which can just kill you right away, and which is really, really, really sensitive. If you just make one wrong move, you're done. That concept is represented by things like Scorpios, snakes, and so on. So altogether, that is the DNA spiral in that one symbol of the Cancer. Very, very like dense symbol, but you get it, right? So that this is an example how one card, it's not flat, it's not just Cancer, it's on different layers. That Cancer is a crocodile, on another level that Cancer is a Scorpio, on another level that's, and when you, that's a multidimensional image. When you make it, you connect it all, then it starts making sense. I hope I will be able to teach this perception. And so let's go to the wolf and the dog. We see them standing and barking at the moon. And these two animals also represent our fears, but different, two different types of fears. The wolf would be the, how you say, more instinctive fear, more aggressive, more instinctive, more like wild nature kind of fear. And the dog, because the difference between the dog and the wolf is that the dog is a domesticated wolf. So this would be the real fear, the wolf, and the dog would be the domesticated fear. Meaning that the dog represents all the fears that you've been trained to, like all the things that you've been trained to fear. Since your childhood, you've been told to fear to lose a job, or stay without education, or stay without, I don't know, stay without a roof above your head, without the job, without education, whatever you were trained to fear. So the dog represents those fears that are not actually yours. They are actually you have been taught to fear these things. And the wolf are the things, represent the things that you fear just because you fear. You're like things like hunger. You fear in this shape of wolf would be a fear of an attack, or like fear of pain. Like, and something like you don't need to be taught to fear pain. You just like once you experience it once, after that you fear it. You don't want to experience it again. So that's natural fear. That's the wolf. Fears to which you've come by yourself. And the dog is the fear that you've accumulated from others. They told you. Be afraid of a divorce, for example. Why? Because somebody told you you should be afraid of it. So in this case, the wolf and the dog, they also represent our enemies and friends. That's different level of looking at the same symbol, because our deepest DNA, our deepest essence in us, represented by the Cancer here, is supposed to, like this card is giving instruction for that deepest thing in you, the DNA, deepest, most powerful thing in you, to start coming out of the water, of your waters, to get onto that road and start walking. And the road goes far, far, far into horizon, and it's not straight road, it's not clean, and there's no lights on it. It's just like some unclear path. And this card is giving instruction to that deepest part of you to get out of the water, start walking. And it's saying there will be wolves and dogs barking. Walk past them. Keep walking where the road is showing you. Keep walking. The wolf barking are the enemies who will be telling you to go back, go back, go back, get out. They'll try to scare you off, push you to go back to your lake, go back to your warm, safe place. Don't move. Because they're enemies. And the dogs are your friends and family who will also warn you, don't do it, don't go. So it's about like if you want to achieve something in life, there will be enemies who are saying, no, you can't do it, don't do it, you're gonna fail anyway, like you're a loser, whatever. That's enemy trying to stop you, a wolf barking. But there will also be dogs barking. Your friends, your family, your mother, loving mother, she will try to stop you as well. Your friends might start telling you, be careful, this might happen. Be careful, that might happen. Be careful, like they can do this to you. This can happen. They're also barking. And they're actually, like, their intention is good. They're trying to save you, protect you. Why are these people trying to protect you? Because the dog here is the symbol of your delegated fear. You've delegated these people to fear for you. Because the dog originally, in, like, imagine in the cave times, we're living in a cave and we're afraid of the night, we're afraid of what can happen while we're asleep. So we domesticate this dog and we delegate the dog to fear for us, because we can't fear at that time. Like at the night time, we need to sleep. We need to somebody to whom we can assign to stay awake and fear for us. And dog is perfect for that. The dog can sleep and stay half asleep and be very attentive and careful, sensitive. Once again, animal, same as that Cancer was very sensitive. All of these three animals are very sensitive, but you see that we're approaching that sensitivity from different angles. The sensitivity of a dog is ability to, in that darkness, when your owner, like you're a dog, your owner is sleeping in the cave, in the house, for example, and the owner assigned you to watch out, and he delegated his own fear to you, so it's your job to fear for him. So that's what you've delegated, your fear, to your friends and your family, to your mother, so that she's really doing her job very well. A lot of mothers I know that they're really, like, whenever they're kids are trying to make a new step, they're like, oh wait, you have to think about this, you have to worry about this. They suggesting fears, even if the person did not have fear before starting this project. The mother considers her job to be to insert fears. They're like, oh, you were not careful enough, you haven't considered, they can do this, they can do this, she can do this, he can do this. And they suggest you what to fear, because they're acting like this dog, protecting you, trying to fear for you, because you can't do it well. So they're doing it for you in the night. You need them, they feel. So the instruction of the card, if you want to if you want to evolve in this life, take that deepest DNA, deepest, most sensitive, unknown part from you, from the deepest waters of yourself, come out onto that path. You'll see the path. It will not be clear. It will be in darkness, and there will not be bright shining light. There will be only this unclear light of the moon, and this whole atmosphere will be kind of scary. Imagine you're walking in the night here. It's a night on this image. So it's night and the road is unclear, nothing is clear, you don't know what's waiting you around the next corner. You'll just start walking. It's telling you start walking, and enemies and friends will try to stop you. Ignore them. Keep walking. Keep walking past both of them. Don't let them stop, because how many people you've known that started a project and then friends or parents stopped them, blocked them by inserting fears. So ignore, not only enemies, friends also. Keep walking past them, and the road will not be clear. You will see far in distance, you will see these two towers. What are these two towers now? And these two towers are the symbol of mental construction, so mental structure, let's say. So the tower generally is a building, right? So building is something that we need to construct that did not exist naturally in the world. It's something that we humans constructed. So in these cards, the tower is a symbol of something that you've constructed, that has been constructed. So in this case, it is a mental structure. The road will go past these mental structures. And what are these mental structures? Now, we have this symbology of the middle way of Buddha, when he was talking that both extremes, he found through his own experience that neither one of the extremes actually works. What works is the careful walking through the middle way. Carefully go, don't fall into this extreme, don't fall into that extreme, carefully. Trying to be too good, trying to be too bad, like not eating anything at all, or overeating, both are evil. That's the logic. Just like denying all the pleasures of this life and would not bring you to success. Because if you will not be able to do it efficiently long enough, after a while you'll be thrown into the other opposite. So that Buddha's middle way of balance in between two opposites. And what are these two opposites in this specific card? Because, as I said, everything in this card represents fears. Your fears. And what do we have about this idea of there is this idea of Scylla and Charybda, which are two monsters, which, according to the myths, they're living in the sea, and there is a passage where a ship, if a ship wants to pass through that, there is a place where a ship needs to pass through this narrow road in between two rocks, and two islands or two rocks. And in these two rocks, on one of them, there is this disgusting creature called Scylla, and that is a chthonic being, which has many dog heads, very scary being, with many heads of a dog, attacking, barking. So if you get any close to that thing, it will eat you up. They draw it very ugly and disgusting, but you can imagine. So basically that's a dog with many heads, which will attack you if you get any close. On the other rock, there is the opposite being called Charybda, and that is the being which lives in the water around that rock, and it has this huge mouth, which will just swallow and suck you into if you get any close. So these two beings, they represent two opposite versions of fear, which in one case we fear that something attacks us. In the other case, we fear something that pulls us in. It sucks us in, kind of like that representation of all the beings that live at the depth of dark waters. It can be sharks, whatever else you're afraid of. Basically, our understanding of our fear of the depth, our fear of the void, our fear of something that sucks you in and you disappear. So these are two different fears. In this case, you experience pain and eventually die, I guess. But in this case, you disappear. You're sucked in and you just disappear. These are two primordial fears, just of pain and of non-existence. Kind of both of them are fears, But as I said, like when we say that, okay, one is masculine, another one is feminine, okay, within this feminine card, there are also masculine, feminine. Because out of these wolf and dog, masculine, feminine, out of these two towers, or all these beings like Scylla and Charybda, one is attacking aggressively with the dogs, the other one is just sucking you in, swallowing you. So this would be the magnetic principle, and this would be the electric principle. So within a feminine card, we have, again, masculine, feminine. That's why I say that they're coming in layers, and trying to understand them as flat, two-dimensional concept, like masculine, feminine. Okay, I got it. If it doesn't fit into this, it's toxic, masculine, toxic, feminine. That's why that simplification is not very effective, because these concepts are meant to be understood multidimensionally. Same as when we take, for example, I don't know, man and woman, they get together, they have a kid, so this is a masculine and feminine. They have a kid, which is at the same time masculine and feminine, but the kid itself has own gender, right? So it can be, imagine, it's a girl. So within that girl itself is a girl, all right? But within that girl, there is man and woman. And on next level, there is within each one of these parents, man and woman, man and woman. And within each one of them, man and woman. So on as many layers as you're able to perceive, there will be so many men and women within that one female child. So on one level, we can just look at her and just say she's just feminine. If we look a little deeper, she's feminine and masculine. Then if we look a little bit deeper, she's 2 times feminine, 2 times masculine. So, and so on. Within each one, there's 2 more. Within each of those 2, there's 2 more. That logic of multi-layered understanding, multi-layered perception. That's what we're talking about here. Same with this magnetic energy of the moon. We have to understand that within the magnetic principle, there are again 2. Within those 2, there's again 2, because, for example, Scylla, that aggressive dog-like with many heads, creature, which is so aggressive. Usually, like, she's aggressive, so that's toxic feminine, barking, attacking you, right? She was actually, well, what's the origin of that myth? That was a beautiful myth, nymph, right? That word. So a beautiful girl who was turned into a monster by somebody, by some goddess who envied her beauty. So it was a beautiful girl, and some goddess got jealous of her. What she did, she poisoned the water in which this beautiful girl was swimming. Water again. Water was poisoned. When the water poisoned, she swam into that, entered that poisoned water. She turned into a monster. Now, let's connect that idea of you were an innocent girl, maybe, or boy at some point. And imagine this concept of turning you into this disgusting being of Scylla, dog with many heads. Somebody at some point poisoned your water. Get the idea of that myth. She was beautiful and pure. And then some jealous old goddess came and poisoned her water. We talked about water being our emotions. If her waters were pure and beautiful, and she was pure and naive and beautiful, and some old and jealous lady came and poisoned her water, which turned her into a monster. And now she attacks everyone. Do you see the connections with people in your life? And maybe with yourself, when you were soft and kind and pure, until the point when somebody came and poisoned your pure waters and turned you into uh, aggressive being. So that logic. So there is some fears in us and aggression which is innate, that comes from the depth. There is some which was appeared in us because somebody triggered it, somebody poisoned our inner waters, our emotions. So with all of these layers of these fears, we're supposed to deal before we're able to work with any real manifestations. Because if you try to manifest using just this happy card without actually knowing this, you might get in trouble, because in this happy card, this whole card is represented in the horse. In this whole card, horse represents the movement, this impulse. And the horse must be white, which the white color of white means purity, purity of intention, innocence, purity of intention, that idea of virginity, Virgin Mary, that concept, like that, was Mary virgin or not? Should we also try to conceive Christ without having sex? It was not about having sex, it was the concept of purity, concept of virginity represents the purity of intention. Only purity of intention allows this whole thing to work. Without the purity of intention, you cannot conceive the consciousness of Christ. So, but in this card, the purity of intention is represented by animal. It's a horse. And this is the animal altogether. So if you haven't worked through these many different beasts within you, your horse will basically not be white, will not be pure. So this whole mechanism of the sun card will not work. That's how these cards are intertwined and why they're connected. I keep repeating. So this principle of purity and virginity, let's talk about it then, because we also have from going from that Scylla, that beautiful girl who was pure and she was a virgin. That's clear. Why do they point out so many times in so many different myths and legends this virginity of specific gods? Why? Because like in this card also, the goddess of the moon, Selena, in other, like her other names are Diana, or Diana, whatever in Russian it's Diana. And another name is Artemis, and that's the same goddess of the moon. And all three of those are virgin goddesses. Why do they point out their virginity? To repeat that same idea, that virginity is the representation of purity of their intention. Until their waters, it's before their waters had been poisoned, or the moment when you've already dealt with all the poison in you and now your intentions are pure. Then from this beautiful Selena, goddess of the moon, or Diana or Artemis, you are pure as this white horse, because the white horse is also a representation of the unicorn in the paradise with Adam and Eve. The unicorn was the animal who was, when Adam and Eve were kicked out of the heaven, and that animal was given a choice by God to stay in paradise or to go with the people, and that unicorn chose to go with people. So its loyalty or purity of intention is like symbolizes that nature, pure and loyal and innocent. And that white horse that we have as a symbol is also from that idea of purity. It connects us to all these moon goddesses who are virgins and pure. And in their symbology, whenever they're like represented somewhere, we see a deer. Again, deer being a symbol of sensitivity. It's the most sensitive animal. To catch a deer, a hunter must be very, very, very professional, let's say. And these goddesses like Diana, Artemis, they were hunting deer. They were able to catch a deer because they were pure. Like that idea of their virginity was their guarantee to be able to hunt deers who were so sensitive. Anyone who is not pure enough will not be able to get close to the deer. See how deer represents the same idea as the crocodile or cobra. If you're not pure enough, if you're not aligned enough, if you're not centered enough, if you haven't dealt with your deep emotions, if you don't have that purity or virginity of your intention, you will not be able to deal neither with cobra, nor with the crocodile, nor with the deer. So that whole concept, like I'm giving you as many sides to look at the same concept so that you kind of start getting that multidimensional understanding of the major arcana, how deep these pictures are, that they're not just flat, how many symbols are encrypted in there. And as for the white horse, we also have this Indian understanding of the god who will come to end the Kali Yuga. A god will come and signify the beginning of Satya Yuga. That god will come on a white flying horse. On a white flying horse. So that symbol is like it's all throughout different mythologies and cultures, all intertwined, and we see goddesses like Diana drawn with deers and dogs, because they're hunters. They're these goddesses, like hunter goddesses, and they are dealing with earth and fertility. Even though they're virgins, they are goddesses of fertility, because fertility is the symbol of earth, of this crops, of everything that earth gives. And in order to deal with earth, you have to be pure. That in order to successfully deal with earth, you can deal with her without purity as well, but in order to succeed in your interactions with earth, you do need that level of purity. And so the symbol of dogs, of Scylla, dogs attacking, we see dogs here, and we see dogs near Diana, when they're hunting for deers. And all these are, I hope you start seeing how they're all connected and intertwined. And this idea of the, something came to my mind. Yeah, this idea of the virgin giving birth to the most beautiful being possible, to the most beautiful consciousness possible. Is this the idea? Like, does it mean, okay, I'm not a virgin anymore, so I have no chance to reach the Christ consciousness then? The idea there is not the physical virginity. It is the idea, representation of the maximum capacity of your electrical potential. Electrical potential. Because only when your intentions are pure, your thoughts and desires and intentions are not, how you say, what's the word? Not split into many different directions. They're all aligned into one. And in that oneness, your potential can be expressed in the most beautiful way. So that is the concept of purity of thought, virginity of thought. And do you have to be a child to reach that virginity? Because here, the unicorn was also in the Bible. The unicorn is the symbol of Christ. So here we can say that the horse is the Christ, but also the child is also the symbol of Christ. And then, like, where is the Christ then? Christ consciousness is this whole idea all together. Within this Christ consciousness, there's the idea of Virgin Mary, representing the symbol of the purity of intention, representing the idea of the force which gives this impulse for movement, and this integration of all these concepts all together allows for the birth of the highest level of consciousness, right? Which is called Christ consciousness. So that's electrical potential being fully expressed. That's the representation of the white horse. Okay. What else? Okay, I'll go through a list of few more beings that you can connect, because we also have mermaids, we have muses. All of those beings are considered chthonic beings because they come from the depth. Muses do not come from above. Inspiration comes from there. Muse comes from the depth. And those goddesses originally are chthonic as well. They were coming from the deep somewhere. And then we have a god Pan, which was the originally the way he was drawn was later copied into this image of Satan with those legs and horns. I forget words sometimes. So that image of Pan we are familiar with as the image of on this picture. So now we see how these are integrated, like connected now. Not only these, but these, and how they're all connected. One goes into another one. So this god Pan, once again, is the chthonic being, and according to mythology, he represented this ability, like again, all those natural impulses of the animal nature, including like desire to party and never-ending sexuality, all those impulses, like animal impulses. And he had this ability to create the panic fear. So his name Pan is the root of the word panic, because he was able to create that, to initiate that fear by playing his instrument. Anyone who would hear it would suddenly start feeling that panic, so panic attack. So the root of the panic attack is the same as we get the same idea that we have from these legends about sirens singing, like all those Medusa, Gargona, all those beings are chthonic beings. I want you to connect them all into one pile and to see how many sides of the same concept they represent. Why do we need so many? Because understanding of this concept cannot be flat. We do need to look at it from many different perspectives, because there are many sides to this concept. Also, just basically, you can unite it into everything that is directly related to Earth and nature. So if you'd be watching some movies, I'll give you some examples of movies to watch, you can see also that same terror and fear and this primordial fear being initiated by demonstration on the screen of birds, for example. When you see like birds acting weirdly in the sky, like when they start, like especially black birds, they start acting weird, making like noises, making swirling, and that creates the same feeling that you get, like what's happening, like what's gonna happen, some uncontrollable force of the nature is coming onto you and you cannot control. That's the same feeling of like tsunami coming over you for those who have those kind of dreams. And in one of the movies that I will give, there will also be a field of corn, which also represents the same idea of where there's no sea or ocean. You can use the field of corn to experience the same fear of, because it's like anything can come out of there when it's like a big corn, like field, tall, and it's like an ocean from the depth of which like anything can come out, especially in the dark. So that can also, corn can also trigger the same fear. And so all the monsters, like the latest ones would be like Cthulhu, and all these beings, serpent-like, and all the dragons, and all the werewolves. The same idea again. We have the moon here, and werewolf is the one who is activated by the full moon, for example, and that story itself, that image of the wolf, which is activated in you in specific conditions, right? So those specific conditions are represented by the moon changing form. And that moon we see as a representation of our, like moon is connected with our emotions, with water in us. And within the cycle of the moon, within a month, we will see different stages. Like our water in us will be in different states. Sometimes it will be like lower, sometimes it will rise. And when it rises and when it falls, it affects the conditions of the Cancer. It feels like, you understand, like if you're a Cancer, you feel yourself different when there is a lot of water and when all the water is gone. So that will trigger something in the Cancer. The Cancer might start feel ready to move out in one stage of the moon, and on the other phase of the moon, the Cancer will be more willing to draw back. So that is the logic of that symbology of the moon affecting the wolf in you, or the werewolf, who turns without his own will into that animal, being affected by that change in the moon. And how do we work with this? I'm explaining the symbols, so I want you to have the image to be as multi-dimensional as possible. Later you'll understand why I'm doing this, but let me see if I forgot anything. Okay. I have a few more items, and then so basically I want I understand how you might feel when there's so many concepts, so many deities, so many myths, so many gods, so many, how do I work with all of that? As too much. That's why I'm trying to group them into categories, and that's why all of these we're putting into one category of all the things that are coming out of you, and to just by this seeing how many of them are and how many facets are there, it will help you understand why it's important to really spend time with this work before you start applying this power that you have in you to some manifestations. First get to know all these animals, all this zoo that you have within you, in your DNA, and all your ancestors. That would be if you dealt with your fears, then there's those people who poisoned your water, and then there's those who programmed you in childhood. Then there will be even deeper those who just gave you their programs with the body, with the DNA. So these are levels of dealing with. And the moon, what role does the moon play with this? Because the moon is the symbol of night and sleep. So like, let's say all these beings are activated. They're coming out of the water, most likely in darkness. They're activated in the dark times. And you can work with them in the dark, or you can work with them through in your sleep as well, because like the face of the moon is also, you can see her, the profile actually, and her eyes are closed. So basically she's sleeping here, where it means that you're actually doing some of this work as you sleep. It's being done while you sleep. That's one part of the work. That's easy. You can just sleep. And the rest for you when in other stages, because this moon actually shows all stages, like 3 stages, I think, yeah. And with like working with different stages would mean like some of the work can be done while you're sleeping. Some of the work, like some integration, will be done automatically while you sleep. Some integration must be done by facing the moon, by facing that unclear light and walking this path through these towers of your mental structures, in which one is telling you all the things that can attack you, and the other side is telling you all the things that can suck you in. So Stilla and Charybda, and that middle way of Buddha, not eating anything at all or overeating, both are too much. The soft, careful middle way, and dealing with these issues will allow you to deal with everything in this reality which you now consider bad, dark, or unwanted or evil, because in some way, anything that you consider bad will fall into one of these categories. Either you've been programmed to fear that, either you got scared of it at some point of your childhood, either like you copied that fear from somebody, or you received it from your ancestors. It will fall into one of these categories. So all your fears, everything that you feel bad, dark in this life, you can just list it and work. You will have to work through it if you do wish to gain your full potential. If you don't, the effect of your growth and manifestations can be kind of interesting. I don't suggest going forward without integrating the animal, the beast. So what else we have here? Children, as there is no human on this picture. This is important. On this card, on some of them we do have humans in different form, male, female, or child. Here we don't have any humans, basically saying that this whole card is dealing mostly with your like animal aspects, but all the animal aspect in you is the body that you receive when you're born. So like the most sensitive out of all versions of you that ever existed, you were the most sensitive when you were the smallest, the youngest age, whatever. And so there is a child in this picture, even though it's not here, but your the child in you is the representation of the most sensitive, most primitive, let's say. Let's be like your child, you're still the primitive version of you, and at the same time you're like, you can consider the child to be again one more symbol of the animal, because it has all the attributes. It is the most primitive version of you in terms of growth and development and knowledge, but at the same time it has the maximum potential. Why? Like electric potential. It has the maximum because none of its potential has been yet used. So you just were born with your whole potential, and you are a child in terms of like a human age. You're a child, but at the same time you're not blank. So in this idea of giving birth to Christ consciousness, Do we have to actually, to be virgin, do we have to be innocent and young? This concept of virginity, which is used, for example, in this culture in Turkey, in the religious, when they understand that virginity as like directly, with like flat understanding of black and white, physical virginity, which does not guarantee purity of thought at all. So I want you to disconnect that concept from the physical virginity to understanding that even if you are 50, 60, 80, you can give birth to that pure consciousness in you, purity of your consciousness, even if you've already done a lot and created a lot of, like, I don't know, harm, given a lot of harm to people, whatever, and you're not pure anymore. Still, you can give birth to the pure consciousness by giving birth to this Christ within you, by giving birth to the purity, pure child in you once again, because you do have to consider, because that this illusion of purity and virginity being available only to kids when they're physically pure yet is not very correct, because even when we're born, we're not new. We have a new body, but we're not new. We're like all the souls. We're like ancient. We're old. We've lived. We've done things, a lot of things. We received a new body, and we can pretend like we're new and fresh and virgin. But I worked with a lot of kids who, even in like the sexual idea, sexual understanding of virginity, you look at the kids and you see that there's, oh my God, there's like, they're not pure. You can see that, like the energetically. So being a child does not guarantee purity of your energy, purity of your intentions. Because once again, when you're born, if you do understand the idea of reincarnation, you're not born for the first time. Come on. You're not new. You yourself and your intentions, you brought them from the past, from previous lives. And you might have received a new body. Okay, this body has the maximum capacity for electrical potential to pass through it, just because you don't have any new knowledge in this incarnation yet. But the purity of thought is not directly related to you being a child. It's not like when you're little, your thoughts were more pure. No. Your thoughts were where you left off in your past life. And who knows who you were in your past life. Your body might have been a virgin in childhood yet, but your intentions, if you read some intentions of some kids, you'd be shocked. So don't be shocked by this whole idea of child sexuality, or these terrible people who see some sexuality in kids and commit terrible crimes. I understand that level of, like, there are some kids who give out such energies and such intentions that not everyone can control themselves and hold back from harming that child. So I want to separate that idea of the child, like you can only be pure when you're little. No, you can give birth to that purity during your adult life already. And in fact, only in adult life you can give birth to Christ consciousness. Mother Mary could not have done that when she was 5. Could not have given birth to Christ. So she had to live something, obviously. So this is the concept of children in this whole idea. We see children here, we child here, and this is a child as well. And when you see any movies, I'll give you some examples of movies to watch related to integrating these symbols that I've been talking about. And there, in these movies, there will usually be kids involved. because basically they're the best at representing that primordial fear. It's not so effective to use adults and old people to show fear, like real fear and terror. Kids are best to represent that because they still don't know so many things in this world. They're more prone to fearing dark woods or dark whatever caves or whatever. So kids are usually here because they're a symbol of that animal that's just coming out of the waters. And then we also have this aversion. I like this term, and I like this whole idea because it really helps to understand that level of sensitivity. Why I love this movie. Like I love to suggest to watch the movie by Polanski called Aversion. I think Aversion, it's in English, right? And that level of sensitivity, like in between sensitivity and schizophrenia, that border is perfect representation of that animal being triggered. And the last, if you watch that movie, you see the last scene shows what triggered that animal in the girl and what caused this whole thing to happen, how little is required to trigger that animal in a little child, and how much it can affect the rest of the life of the person. That's shown in that Polanski movie. And then I suggest you to watch and rewatch, if you probably watched already, the movie called The Signs with Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix, I think his name. Sorry if if I mispronounce names, I might. These are like perfect for understanding this whole idea of chthonic being and importance of understanding of that chthonic being in us. In that movie with the signs, that chthonic being is represented by aliens, because it's the same idea of something coming out of somewhere. In that case, they're coming out of from space, but the idea is same. It's something we don't understand. It's something that we cannot control. It's too much. It's too scary. It's like overwhelming. That terror, that fear is represented by aliens in the movie Signs, but that whole the movie is just amazing, perfect. And the girl with that sensitivity to water, unable to like sensing something that's not there, that is a symbol of very heightened sensitivity, which is like at the level of sensitivity of an animal, of a snake or whatever. That level of she's sensing, nobody else is sensing it there. Same sensitivity that girl in the Polanski's movie has, that heightened sensitivity, and that is a symbol that basically that girl had lived a very impactful emotion in her past, and she could not integrate that shock, that trauma. And so basically her inner animal is triggered, constantly triggered. Constantly triggered animal in a child will be represented by things like asthma in one child and this sensitivity and aversion to things in another child. And that symbology is very well represented. And then that concept of their father losing faith. And should I break down the whole movie now? I just love that movie. I hope you watch. If you have questions, we can discuss it later. So basically that movie, if you watch, it will help integrate this concept, why it's important to work with the animal, with the chthonic being, why it's important to understand what chthonic being is. And for those who like Harry Potter, I was never a fan of those series, but I watched this one specifically to to use it as an example. The what is the word? Azkaban. Somebody who is kept in Azkaban. What is that word? Prisoner. Okay, Prisoner of Azkaban. That movie from Harry Potter's. It has all these symbols in it, and children and werewolves and the wolf and the light, which seems to be the father, but actually it's not the father. But if you have faith, the father will come, but actually it's not the father, it's you. That whole idea is just perfectly represented in that children's book. So you can use those ones, and also you can, if you want to understand deeper this concept of moon affecting, how it's affecting us and what it can pull out of us, what kind of things that can come out. It's very well represented in a movie called Perfect Strangers, I think. I will write down in comments the name of the director. It's Italian movie, and it also demonstrates so well how those inner hidden things under the effect of some stages of the moon can just randomly come out. And will we be able to integrate them, or will we allow the moon to change the shape again and just let all of those cancers go crawl back into our deep waters and hide them there again? Because just for the ending, I repeat, the message of this card is, the instruction of this card is that the card is instructing, let your inner deepest creature in you crawl out of the waters, your inner waters, and start walking on that path. Ignore the wolf, ignore the dog who will be barking, walk past them, walk through these two towers of the structures that you've built of two sides of the two extremes of your fear to be attacked and fear to be absorbed and possessed. That is our fear of feminine energy in us, the darkness in us, which can either attack us, we don't know what comes out of the darkness attacks us, or what can any moment pull us out and just suck us in and dissolve us into nothingness. So this is our fear of our own depth. If we're dealing with our own integration, this is our fear of our own depth. And if you're a male, if you haven't integrated this fear of your own depth, you will also be afraid of females, afraid of commitment, whatever they call this. Because like any female, you will see as potential moon, who can potentially either attack you suddenly and bite off your most precious parts, or can just, like, another opposite fear is that this thing can be so deep and so powerful, and that depth can just, like a black hole, can just suck you in, and you will stop existing, dissolve, you will lose your willpower, your identity, everything. So if you haven't dealt with your own inner feminine, you will not be able to deal with the real physical feminines. So both for masculine and feminine, dealing with your inner feminine is useful. So if the instruction continuing, walk past these two structures of your fears that you've constructed. Both of them are actually illusory. They're real, but they're made of the moonlight. And if you walk past those two towers, you get onto that level where there's actually the moon is located. If you walk past the moon, you will see the sun, because in this image we see the sun rays coming out of behind the moon from behind the moon, because the moon herself does not have rays. Those rays are the sun located behind the moon. So you have to walk past these two dogs, walk past those two towers, two spheres, walk past the moon herself, and there you will see the sun shining. It's actually shining behind the moon, but you have to walk this whole path to see it. Whew. I hope this was useful. I'll see you again in our next video. I'll put the names of the films that I mentioned in the comments under this video. Bye bye.